Hello and welcome to the 6+++ Show, a podcast for your wargaming and 40k needs. Hobby talk, tactics, tournament reports, lore and much more. We have it all. Please welcome your host for the evening, Tom.
Cool, so Stuart, can you hear us?
Yes.
Cool, there was no delay there. We're winning.
No delay, Stuart. Say again. Hello, Stuart. Say hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
I'm seeing him a little delayed.
Oh, I'm not. Lee, is Stuart delayed for you?
I think he's always been slightly delayed.
Just in life.
Just in life. But no, he seems all right.
I mean, it's fair.
That's more neurological than it is anything else.
There you go. We've got a cold open for the first time in our history, so that'll do. We can definitely use that. But I'll launch us, shall I? Okay.
So you guys
welcome,
all went a
ladies,
bit funny there
gentlemen.
for me.
There we go. I told you he's way off.
There you go.
Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and frightened conscripts to that 6++ show. I am your host, Tom, and winter has come. It is cold, it is dark, but we still have our toys in the attic to play and to paint and to talk about on the internet. So that is what we're going to do today. And I am joined today by our dear captain, Chris. Say hello, Chris.
Hello, Chris.
Chris, what have you done? Have you hobbied?
I have hobbied.
Cool.
For listeners of the show will know I've been working on a tree for a while.
A tree.
That tree is nearing completion.
That's very cool.
In fact, after this, I'm going to go and base it, and then it'll be done. And I can then move on to building Howling Banshees.
Yay!
I'm preparing for the inevitable
Is that what this
Harlequin
is? Yeah, okay.
by thinking, you know what, I want to play a game of Warhammer where I have the Incarn and I have no idea what it's doing and my opponent has no idea what it's doing, and we're going to have a great time.
It will be really fun. The Inari train is a lot of fun, so I look forward to watching you ride that. It's going to be very fun.
That's my next stuff, yeah.
Brilliant. But I'm not just joined by Chris. I am also joined by Stuart. Say hello, Stuart.
Hello.
Hi. Have you been hobbying, Stuart? What's new in your hobby world?
Yes, I'm hobbying on behalf of someone else at the moment, which is most enjoyable. Yeah, so I'm building space dwarfs and getting ready to paint space dwarves.
Very nice, very nice. And how are they to build? What are the Votan like, fresh out the box?
Yeah, not bad. It's not a bad set. There's lots of bits, lots of gubbins, so you can, if you're like me and you are doing all the bells and whistles and all the pouches and grenades and all that kind of stuff, then then it's great. But also that lends itself to the beginner, that you can leave all that stuff off and leave them quite basic, but still have the crux of the model without worrying about WYSIWYG and things like that.
Very nice.
Yeah, I'd say that it's a good blueprint as a kit to be able to tune up and down. The only downside is that a lot of the arm placements are unique to each torso.
Right.
So you can't. There's not a lot of customization.
Yeah, okay. And you've got to be careful with that when that's like that. I very easily mess those sorts of kits up. Okay.
Yeah, and there's someone that's got natural kit basher. Like,
yeah.
I started off wanting to do this hobby because I liked everything to be different, which is why I've always collected Chaos. So it does pain me a little bit to have identical models, but we'll get there. I'll just give them a different head or helmet or something. It'll be fine.
Yeah. There's ways around it. Yeah, I've seen a few done with Age of Sigmar, like Fire Slayer heads, and they actually look really cool with those.
That could be cool. Yeah, I bet.
Proper baller on some of the fighty ones. Excellent. And finally, I'm also joined by our Dark Prince of Chaos, Lee. Say hello, Lee.
Hello.
Lee, have you done any hobbying lately? You've got a hobby desk.
I'm right next to my hobby space, and on my hobby table, I have currently got another additional 10 Noise Marines.
More Noise Marines.
Yeah, like 30 wasn't enough. We need 40 now, so
yeah.
Why not? Why not?
Living the Noise Marine dream. So does that hint perhaps at a move away from the creations of Bile towards towards the Emperor's Children in your near future?
That was only a pit stop. It was a one-off. My brain couldn't handle running EC for LGT, so now the real game's afoot.
Very, very exciting, and also terrifying because EC terrify me. But that's very exciting. And as for myself, I haven't hobbied a ton. I played a game into Tyranids with Night Lords on Monday, which actually went better than I expected it to go, and has sort of relit my Night Lords fire to the extent that I am toying with taking them out to an event just to see what happens, because they are good fun. But in pursuit of that goal, I'm building Possessed all day, every day right now. I've got a bunch of the new Possessed, and that's what I'm going to be painting.
The new ones?
Yeah, the big, sexy new ones. They are lovely, lovely models. They are just so chunky. It's unreal. So I'm very excited to paint them and get started and yeet them at people. It's quite unusual. I can't remember the last time I played a game where I just put my entire army in front of someone, but that's what I did on Monday. I was like, what happens now? Here it is. It's all coming in. And it's quite good, quite fun. Whether that'll work all the time remains to be seen.
You have an entire army with the lowest movement speed, 10.
Yeah, pretty much. Thereabouts. Because the Possessed are 9, the Termies are coming in auto deep striking turn 1, and everything else is like jetpacks and stuff. So yeah, the whole army just goes whoop, and then asks what's going to happen next. Yeah, it's very fun. I do like Night Lords a lot. They're very fun. Great. Okay, so what we're going to do is jump into a quick recap of LGT, which, as we discussed last week, was the end of the UKTC season as well. And after we've recapped our LGT experiences, we're going to talk about our reflections on this UKT season that we've all been playing away in, getting our space points, gathering our rankings in, how we feel it was, what lessons we learned, how we feel we've come along as players in that time. Then we're going to think about goals and hopes for the coming season, because it's a new season now. And if we have time at the end, we might talk about some general changes in the rules and the game that have taken place since we last had a natter as well. So we will start with you, Chris. How did your LGT go? Take us through it in rapid fashion.
Rapid fashion. Okay, right. Wow. No, so I took the Harlequins. Game 1, I was against a friend of yours, Tom, Mr. Martin.
Martin Bird, yeah, lovely man.
And he was an absolute delight. He had Sisters of Battle. You got to the table, you could see he was a bit nervous. He was a bit worried and that sort of thing. But we had a really fun game. And it ended up really close because going into that mission, Abandoned Sanctuaries, it's not great for Harlequins. And afterwards, we spoke about it. And I think if he dumps his whole army just in the middle of the board, says, "This is my defender shrine,"
around. Yeah.
You are going to struggle to deal with me, mate.
Yeah. It's actually the elf nightmare, that.
It is.
Everything's there. You're like, shit, I was hoping you were going to play Dinky, I go, you go. And
exactly. Yeah. Don't bum rush me. Please don't just charge your whole army at me.
Yeah, exactly.
And thankfully he didn't. He was a bit kind of like handed it out. He had like lots of Repentia, lots of Sacrosanct and stuff. But I was able to. I felt like I was trading really well, and yet I was still just losing stuff.
It's a hard list to play because it's got so many bodies.
Yeah, and it's the same as every Sisters game. I got a points lead. Can I hold on as I start to lose stuff? And I managed a 93-80 win. But yeah, as I said, I think it can go very differently if he's really aggressive in the right places.
Nice.
So I got to a good start, and then I was playing into Custodes.
Okay.
And he was a guy who's Spanish, lovely guy who came from Spain and represents Deep Spain Games or something. They're like the biggest YouTuber content provider in Spain for 40k. So like really big channel and stuff. And he's like he was ranked 8th in Spain at the time. So he was a really good player. I feel like my army definitely stronger than his. I think my army plays the mission better. And for 3/4 of that game, I was in complete control. I was like, this is a cakewalk. Don't see the problem here. Then I did something really stupid. And this is a common theme at events at the moment. I do one stupid thing and then I start losing games. And the stupid thing was he chose an Auric Mortalis, which meant he had to try and kill my Troop Master. Now, my Troop Master is going to sit in a boat. I don't need my Troop Master. So that means my Troop Master is going to sit in the boat for 5 turns and I'm going to stop him from scoring 15 on a secondary. No.
Yeah, classic.
How could that plan go wrong, right? Anyway, he kept throwing his bike units at me, and it got to the point because he just failed all of his 4-ups all the time. He had such a big happy smile on his face as he just failed over and over and over. And like there were 2 bikes left, I positioned my whole army to shoot into him. I was like, this might be the time where he makes all his 4-ups. So I get my troop master out of the boat just in case I need him to fight. As it was, immediately those bikes died because he just failed the first fusion saves, and so now my troop master's pissing in the breeze basically. But I've positioned him behind some boats. He can't get charged. Next turn, I'll just hop in. Then I've moved block to Dreadnought with a Star Weaver, 3.1 inches away. Now Lee's gone, and at that point he fires across his Mr. Worldwide character and lands right next to my boat, and Heroic intervenes out of nowhere. And I'm like, I could have avoided that.
Yeah.
Then I fail all my invuln saves, and this Mr. Worldwide kills my Star Weaver, consolidates closer, moves in his turn, moves up to my troop master and declares a charge. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll just light run away. At that point, all I had to do was light run away into my Star Weaver, and we're all okay.
Yes, because we now know you're allowed to do that.
Because you're allowed to do that. And at that point, I didn't think of it. So I light ran away, and then he was able to charge into a boat, kill the boat, bounce into my character, and then do the Qatar to not allow you to fall backwards, like a roll-off. And he did that. He won the roll-off.
Yeah.
And to cut a long story short, basically we had 2 fight phases for his shield captain to kill my my troop master, and
I reckon he's good to do that in 2 goes.
He should do it straight away.
Yeah, I was going to say he should do it in 1.
Was in the first fight phase, I made 6 out of 6 4-up invulnerables. Yeah. I was like, I'm so sorry. And he was just like, it's fine. I'm like, okay. Most people would be really angry right now. And
he sounds like a great dude.
He was a lovely guy. And then the second round, it came down to slow rolling it, and it came down to the final one. I failed it. I CP re-rolled. If I made the 4-up, I won the game. If I didn't, I lost the game, and I failed it. And I lost by 1 point.
Ouch.
So 92.
Was that a 15 swing then? That?
Yeah. 5 points for killing the troop master. 5 points for killing him in melee. 5 points for killing him outside of my deployment zone.
That's an absolute disaster, isn't it?
So I was not a happy bunny after that game. There's absolutely no need for that to have happened. There were multiple points where I could have not made a mistake. Not positioning my boat close enough. Not running away into the right, but just so many things. So that was pretty annoying. So I was in a bad mood. But then I had a nice easy game next against Necrons. My game 3.
We love Necrons.
It was Necrons with 27 Scarabs and 15 Wraiths. It was literally identical. He was happy to admit it. It was Liam Hackett's WTC
the Australian WTC.
Australia. Yeah.
Super, super good. Yeah.
So now, in my experience, if you don't kill Necrons by turn 3, kill enough of them, you lost the game because they were beaten on secondary. So I got first turn, and I just dumped my entire army down one flank. And I went, I'm going to try and kill as much stuff as I can. I was quite close to him, unfortunately. But I killed 13 Scarabs and 4 Wraiths. And he was like, oh man, that was not good. I'm in a lot of trouble here. I want to fight back. And he did nothing. He killed 1 boat. And that was it. And I'm like, I've still got a good chance here. And then I killed some more stuff. And you know what? At the end of the day, I still didn't kill enough stuff. And it got to the point where I held one flank, he held the other, but he out-secondaried and out-primaried me. He'd managed to keep me to 4s for the first 2 turns just by running the Scarabs over to my objectives and just knocking me off them because he's got loads of Scarabs and just couldn't hold any objectives, really. My secondaries were fine, but yeah, I lost that 95-81. So at that point, I'm feeling pretty disappointed. We spoke last time. LGT
2 losses hurts. Always hurts.
Yeah, LGT's not been my best hunting ground. I always felt a bit unlucky with my draws and stuff. So I'm like, well, it's okay. I'm 1 and 2. What's the worst that can happen?
Should get a nice matchup, right?
I should get a nice matchup. So what I instead get is Innes Wilson, who is Team Scotland captain.
Yeah, he's all right. He's all right.
One of the better players in the UK. So at that point, we were the two top 1 and 2 players. He basically run into Necrons twice and
he hasn't lost like 2 games on the bounce in about however million years. So
exactly.
he's furious as well.
He was,
I believe
he's
not happy.
Rather focused. I mean, he drank a lot of alcohol the night before, but he had a face like, I'm going to pummel you. And to be honest, that's exactly what he did. To be fair to me, I have not played a worse game of Warhammer probably in about like 2 years. My brain just went to mush in all the ways it could do. Like I couldn't count dice. I couldn't read my dice properly. I just had no idea what I was doing. I was just like a complete noob. And he went first and just moved up a bit. He had 30 GSC bikes. I made this, and this is, I think it's probably an important learning point actually. It's tied a conviction, and it's a hold 2, hold 3. And I made the foolish mistake of trying to hold 3. So I went, I need to get my Weave Veil. Well, I'll put my Shadow Seed just out onto this no man's land objective, and I'll weave out. I need to defend it. I know, I'll surround it with 3 boats. All that happened was he killed the 3 boats and all the stuff inside it. My shooting had only killed a few GSC bites because they are surprisingly resilient.
They are.
And it was a disgusting game. I mean, the score line was like 96-85, but that was only because he killed so much stuff early on. You can actually see the rest of it as I kind of went around picking up my points and that sort of thing. But yeah, that was sooner to be forgotten, really, and I was kind of upsetting to have played
Painful
so
game.
badly. So yeah, I'm living my best life at 1 and 3, but probably still top of the 1 and 3s because I'm still scoring
absolutely.
so highly.
It sounds like you're scoring very well.
And so my final game was against Orcs, and I'd never played against Orcs with Harlequins before. I didn't really know what to expect. As we said earlier, you need to run at Harlequins. He didn't run at me. I did a bit of move blocking of his vehicles. He was a lovely guy, but he just wasn't aggressive enough. He needed to hammer at me down one flank and try and split me up. Instead, I was a nuisance in one corner with only a couple of boats, whilst everything else held up all his hard stuff.
Right.
He kept having to divert stuff back to his deployment zone to deal with me whilst I was chipping away. And I finished 187.
That's very nice. So you scored very, very well across the event.
I scored very well. I finished on 450 battle points.
That's a lot more than I had.
If you look down it, there's a few players in like the 130 positions, including Stuart, who were like the 450 battle points. But generally, if you're scoring 450 battle points, you're in like the top 30.
Yeah.
So that was nice. And then I did win this nice pretty medal.
Yay!
Because I was the top 2-3 player. Yeah. Trust me, I'd much rather have gone just middle of the road 3-2 or low road 4-1.
I quite like the medal, so I got a 2-3 medal at the Unconquerors. It made me feel great. I was very chuffed with that. It definitely sugars it. Yeah,
it looks nice. So, and I just told I want a medal at a competition. The end. And then
just put a post up. Don't say anything else. Got my LGT medal. Enough said.
So 2-3, finished like 333rd or something. Disappointing. Again, there are reasons why I can explain, but fundamentally, I lost that Custodies game. I threw that one away. I could have given Innes a better game. I definitely could have given Innes a better game. So that was really disappointing.
Was that one of those games where who you were playing got in your head a bit? Do you think? Because I think that happens.
It does happen. Maybe, yeah. I just don't know GSC. I didn't have a good game plan for that mission. I didn't know how to play the game. I didn't have a clear thing. So when you're trying to work it out on the table compared to having all those reps, I think that does make a big difference.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Especially when he's just going to capitalize. Also, the GSC army, they just ignore your modifiers. They don't rely on rerolls. So actually, they are quite good.
I think when they wrote those books, GSC actually did have a lot of tools that hurt Harlequins, and I think they probably thought they'd written a book that was quite good at countering Harlequins. Obviously, they slightly fucked Harlequins, so it didn't really work that way. But no, I remember even in the era of Harlequins and Krafos when they were quite strong with GSC, I had some game into that because of how they work in lots of different ways. So no, it's not an easy game, I don't think, for elves, that one.
No, so,
okay, very nice.
Yeah, it's what it is. We now sit and wait for the data
see what comes next.
Changes. But yeah, I'll talk about my plans later. But yeah, that was my LGT.
Great. Wonderful. I shall go next. And my LGT was very good. I had taken my Drukhari, and the two matchups I didn't want really were Light Harlequins and Creations of Bile, and I got Light Harlequins for my first game. And it wasn't like the most optimal Light Harlequins list, and I was like, well, if the guy's not good at the game, I might be able to have him. Unfortunately, my opponent was a lovely, lovely chap and very good at the game, and he just attacked me really, really hard. On one side, basically destroyed all my transports turn one, which left me in a very difficult position to get across the board, and I just couldn't catch him and keep up. So I ended up getting rolled over fairly easily in that game. And then what did we play next? Oh, I had Space Wolves next.
Classic Tom.
I always get that sort
Not
of thing.
GT without you playing Space Wolves.
I love Space Wolves. Always get some power armor gifted to me when I'm playing the Drukhari, but it is actually a much tougher game now because Space Wolves have much better secondaries. They'll just rack up sort of really nice 5-point secondary turns on the there's one that just as long as their characters are fighting and killing stuff, they're having a great day basically. So I was impressed at how well they scored. I can see why they've improved. I think this game basically hinged on how well my guy used his drop pod, and he needed to wait a turn with his drop pod because I hadn't given him anything to shoot at except grotesques. And he didn't wait. He brought it down turn one. He went first, brought the drop pod down, wasted his drop pods into some grotesques, killed 3 of them, and then the 2 that were left ran over there and ate the Devastators. So it was a bit of a sad day for him. I think if he'd held that and coordinated popping my transports with attacking it with his Wolf Guard in his turn 2, he'd have hurt me real bad, and I'd have been in a really difficult spot. But this was something, he was a newer player, I think, this lad. Lovely guy to play. And it was just, the tools were all there to make my life hell, and I think he just gave away some of his key pieces too early. And then once the Devastators were out of the way, I could just move my boats around and wait for the opportune moment. And there was just a glory. It was either my 3 or 4. I was like, how many CP have you got? He's like, 1. I was like, it's time then, isn't it? And then just everyone flew in from all corners, elves just popping up left, right, and centre. All the Space Wolves die, and then that was the end of it. So it was. I did have to be patient to get my opening, but once it was there, I just rolled through, and Drazar just killed an ungodly amount of poor blue men.
Classic Drazar.
That's what he does. He was on fire because even in my bad Harlequins game, he killed 5 bikes and a transport and some Harlequins. So he'd had a great time even in the massacre. He's just so good. And then third game. Oh, this was the World Eaters list. I got a guy who was running 3 Land Raiders. 3 Chaos Land Raiders. 3 Chaos Land Raiders. Well, you lose game 1. Sometimes this happens. 3 Chaos Land Raiders full of Khorne Berserkers, which actually is quite an interesting list for me to play because I can't kill any of the Land Raiders. They were all alive at the end. I have no way of destroying those without sending Drazar and a load of Incubi, which I don't really want to commit to kill a Land Raider. And all the Khorne Berserkers being offset means that if he puts them in the right places and uses them to yeet out onto objectives, there's definitely some problems there. My opponent was a really lovely lad, and he was a very World Eaters player, though, because he picked the duel secondary, challenged Drazar to a duel. Drazar stayed out of the way, unlike in Chris's game where the Troop Master thought, no, for some reason I just I don't need to stay out of trouble. I can go and get involved. Yeah. Whereas Draz literally hid behind a wall for the entire game and just didn't get involved, which did compound the Land Raider problem because he's the only guy that can actually kill one of these. So I don't know what the hell I'm going to do now. But then Big Brick of Possessed came in with the -1 to win, which isn't enough if a Drukhari army jumps you. And I just whittled down the Khorne Berserkers as they came out until he ran out, and then was just about able to sort of roll him back at the end. And then day 2, I hit a really well piloted Necrons list, tons of destroyers, all the obsec, and the guy just positioned super well. We were talking about it afterwards because I scored okay, and I actually denied him some points, which was my main goal in that game.
Fuck over his tournament.
Yeah, just take some points off him because Necrons score very high. I was like, I'm going to make you score less. Make you score less high. As long as I do that, I'm happy enough. I think there was probably more of a chance if I'd rushed him with everything, but also he had a lot of good combat, and it might have ended in a worse outcome for me. But I think probably I'd rather try that again and risk literally going all in because I just couldn't. He was positioning so well that I just couldn't get.
You're only out.
Stabby elves to things. Yeah. So I think I did have to run in. I didn't have great dice in that game. Some grotesque got rolled over by like wraiths, which just doesn't normally happen. Like it was an absolute disaster. That wraiths who are fairly meh in combat are just pummeling my grotesque to death. But he was a very, very canny player. He's called Ashley, and he was 4-1 at the end. He did very well. So, no, a good game. And then final game, I played Imperial Guard, and I always am an R because I now in Nephilim that I am slightly restricted in the toys I can take. I really hate using a whole relic slot on the Animus Vitae, which is the relic grenade that triggers power from pain up around. Super useful, but it's not killy, and so I'm like, I want another killy character to stab stuff with. But in this game, it paid for itself, and every now and again it does. And so I told the guy, I've got this grenade, the Archon in this boat has it, and if he throws it, power from pain goes off turn 1. He went first, and he moved some tanks and shot some stuff and killed some boats and grotesques and whatnot, but also moved some guardsmen to too close to that transport. So my Archon just gets out the transport, throws the grenade at it, and then basically my entire army charges him turn 1. So the Drukhari are basically just all over the centre and his backfield straight away, which isn't very good if you're a guard player.
It's not ideal for
a gun line. And I've sort of wrapped up a Lehman Russ as well, so it's stuck. It can't get out. So a lot of my army isn't going to get shot, and so yeah, that quickly turns into a bit of a demolition. There is a very fun moment where some mandrakes charge in to tag a tank. His officer intervenes to try and save the tank. The mandrakes just instantly kill the officer, and then he's got these 2. What are the little psychers the guard have? Anyway, they smite their way through all of the mandrakes. So there's 6 mandrakes. They through just high rolling on everything, they kill all 6 of them to free these 2 tanks up. I'm like, shit, I'm going to get shot now. But fortunately for me, it wasn't enough. So that was me, and it was 3-2. And yeah, I mean, I fell down in the 2 games that I would say are the real tests of the current meta, and I didn't have the tools and the answers to it with Drukhari. I think my list didn't have a plan B, didn't have guns. I'd probably need to add more guns to Drukhari if I'm going to play them and be flexible. I think that's probably a running theme. It's working out just how many sort of support guns is enough without detracting from my ability to score, sort of take them alive in combat and stuff. I think it's a tricky balance to strike with them now. But definitely some Dark Lances would have gone a long way, I think, in a couple of those games. So yeah, enjoyed it a lot. And how about yourself, Stuart? Oh, I was 212th or something like that, which is fine.
Cool. Yeah, I started off with a game against Grey Knights.
Oh, very nice.
Which on that map was really only going to go one way, unfortunately. For want of a better word. We did have a little fun. I did have a little fun exchange where he gated a bunch of paladins in behind me.
Oh, that's fun.
But I already had all 3 objectives in the middle, so I just walked off of my back objective, and his paladins were just stood there, shooting stormbolters at poxwalkers or something.
Yeah, that's quite funny. It just doesn't matter that much. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, okay, not. And then I was on his. So I basically just swung the board 180 degrees and went, okay, fine.
Yeah, you just switched around.
Not worried now. I mean, in some missions that might be annoying, in those ones where you like lose points if you don't hold your home or that kind of stuff, but it wasn't one of those.
No.
And yeah, it was just attritional. He was very Terminator armor heavy, so he had 5 Terminators and 10 Paladins in the list. Which just means you don't have very many guns, and I was bringing 75 Poxwalkers and lots of other stuff. So yeah, we called it after 3 turns, I think. 4 turns. But yeah, really good guy, really enjoyable. Just ground it out really. 93.55.
Very, very nice.
Which was 2 off max, because I think I took no prisoners, and which could only score me 10. Then I played into, let me remind myself, Daniel. Yes. So I played into Necrons, but a different type of Necrons to most of the rest of the stuff we've been seeing. So it was the Silent King and Double Catan.
Okay.
And it could have been a really bad day, potentially. Mortal wounds are really dangerous into my army.
Yes.
if especially ones that unlike a lot of psychic powers, a lot of his ones it completely ignore line of sight or the closest enemy or whatever, so he can just come in and get stuck straight into Terminators and all that. So I deep struck a load of Terminator armor to keep it out of harm's way. And I think he got a bit overconfident, the fact that the Terminators weren't on the board, so he just ploughed both Catans straight up the board, and they were both dead by the end of turn 2.
Ouch.
So that was a shame. And then we basically, I just completely ignored. He had 40 warriors, which I ignored until turn 4, where I could actually get everything into them, and then they all died. We had an unfortunate series of events where he felt he was behind, which he was. He needed to make a bit of a gung-ho play. He veiled 20 warriors and a Technomancer or Chronomancer, whichever one had the veil, into a corner to shoot one unit and charge the other and steal my objective off me to get me down to a 4 on the primary. Proceeded to do the shooting and the charging, in my opinion, in the wrong order. So he shot Poxwalkers and charged Plague Marines. Killed a load of Poxwalkers, which was fine, leaving one alive, as people so often do, and charged the Plague Marines. Spent 2 CP to go +1 strength, +1 attack, I think it is, that warriors can have. Proceeded to kill 2 Plague Marines, and then I spent 2 CP for wounds spilling over, and I only rolled the 4 axes, unfortunately. So the 4 so 6 axes. So the 6 axes, 4 hit, 4 wounded, wounding on 2s, re-rolling 1s. He failed he failed all 4 saves, needing 6s for saves, and I did 19 wounds. Out of the 20 warriors, and I was like, we won't roll the rest of that. I was like, I did that the wrong round, didn't I? I was like, yeah. So yeah, that was interesting. But yeah, some highlights. But yeah, 2-0, and then I got launched into table 19, which I kind of have this horrible habit, and it's probably when we summarize this year, something that I don't think you can get around. You've just got to come to terms with. But maybe I haven't got good enough at coming to terms with the fact that if I get the right matchups early, I do score a lot of points, and I can end up in a
Scary town.
Yeah. Table 19. Table 19 is a long way up there.
It is. Yeah. You're gonna hit something strong.
So, and I got paired into Edward Morgan, who unfortunately is quite good at Warhammer.
He's very good. Yeah, I love Ed.
And we had an absolute doozy of a game for the 2 hours that we were allowed to play. One or two other people on the internet may have mentioned something about the fact that round 3 didn't get quite as much playtime as we would have all wanted, but we don't need to go into that in too much more depth here, I'm sure. But when you're playing into Leviathan Nids, both of you need as much time as you can get, because me and him play every single phase.
Yeah, you're both very meticulous players. Yeah.
And it did come down to inches on a couple of occasions, and we only finished 4 turns. He still had a couple of minutes left on the clock, and I was done. But we both should have had at least another 10 to 12 minutes each.
Yeah.
And including a drive home and a drive back again, there is a world where I win that game. I still had all 6 Death Shroud Terminators alive, and they probably needed to charge the middle, kill the ridiculous Hive Tyrant, and hold the center point, which would have stopped him getting 12 on the primary on the last turn, because he had bottom of turn. And if I'd managed to do all of that, and I had Poxwalkers down the back, and if the Poxwalkers had tagged Psychers, which was probably like a 4 or 5 inch charge, to tag his Psychers, they wouldn't have been able to smite the Terminator armor off the center objective, and that probably would have kept them alive. So if those 2 things had happened, then he's in a whole heap of trouble and not scoring many points at the back end of the game. Unfortunately, it was too many dice to roll, so we just kind of had to go, look, he was ahead, we both just scored out our turn, and he won by 2.
Yeah, that's very right.
But on another day, I make a charge, and I win that game by 6 or something. That was a shame, and c'est la vie, really. But yeah, I must admit, I already walked onto that table feeling a little bit of a grumble by the fact that we were still setting up terrain 10 minutes after the round had started.
Yeah. Certainly.
And that kind of got to me a bit. I felt I was rushing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can't really afford to rush with that army.
No.
No. So 2-1 starting the next day, and I actually was fortunate enough to play the same Necron player that Chris played, Keith. And I say fortunate because he was a gent, lovely guy, played the game in exactly the right way. We both had an absolute hoot with it. We talked through the whole game, exactly what had to happen the whole way through, and then for some unknown reason, I forgot how to play Warhammer in turn 5.
Oh no.
And yeah, game management just let me down, and we had again time. We had like 15 minutes left, and I had about just over half of that. So instead of taking a breath and taking 2 minutes to just score the turn out, I proceeded to do what I thought was the best course of action. But actually, in hindsight, if all I'd done was score his turn and maxed his score and gone, this is the most he can get, what do I need to do to score more than that? I would have just walked onto an objective in the back corner and done an action for four secondary points and won the game by 2.
Right, okay.
But unfortunately, I didn't do that. I did too many other things and lost track of stuff and lost the game 84-82. So that was a bit gutting. And that was totally in my own hands, and that kind of put a real downer on the whole weekend.
That end
and
of
I
game
probably
rush
only just got over
really
it in the last couple of days, really.
Mm.
So that was a shame. Because as Chris said, I scored really high.
You did. You scored super high.
And with the points I had, a 4-1 was top 40.
Oh yeah, you'd have been very high up. Very high.
And then on to game 5. Alex Neal, lovely guy, another Death Guard player, and I just out obsec'd him at the end.
Nice.
We both had exactly the same kind of tools and tricks. The only thing that let him down in the mirror is he was taking Mortarian's Anvil, which gives him access to the Gloaming Bloat, which is turn off all rerolls, and he didn't have it in his list. And if he was able to turn off all my rerolls, he probably out-survives me.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But with all my rerolls and the Poxwalkers rerolling hits into the mortal wounds and all that kind of stuff, eventually I just ground him down. He was super aggressive turn 1 with rhinos, which I wrapped, and then kind of just played out from there. So 3-2, not the worst. I scored 93 in that game as well. So I averaged 90 points a game at 3-2, and on. Same with Chris. On another weekend, you score 90 points a game, and you're 4-1 comfortably, looking at a great weekend. Maybe even better than that if you just happen to roll with the right punches. So, but I had 5 great opponents. It's my 3rd LGT, so that's 15 games of LGT where I've got 0 complaints at all about anything other than something I could have done. My last LGT was the same. I had a rules error that I got wrong in game 5 against Brody that cost me the game. But these are things that I can manage. So it's good. And I was really pleased, having been on this tournament scene more consistently over the last 18 months. It was just a great place to there was so many people that we all knew. It was great. It feels like it felt like a convention. With some Warhammer going on, it was just so many familiar, friendly faces. I think that the UK scene is in a really good place right now.
Yeah, I think that sort of end game mapping out. If you're the person who's top of 5, it's so important.
Yeah, it's so important. I need to get better at that.
The person with end of turn does completely slow everything down and completely works every single thing out because they have perfect knowledge now of what needs to happen, right? So you absolutely need to know what their best possible set of things is and play to that, because you can't. And I've often found I rush my 5 because you're in that get to the end, get things finished mindset, and then whoever's bottom of 5 has what feels like forever.
And actually you can take all the stress out of it because you can literally go, I'm going to max his score, and if I max his score right now,
exactly,
if I can still beat it even by just doing 2 things, then we can both just shake hands.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's
right?
exactly it. And so you have
And
to do.
I'll
you have
do
to
my
what they're
thing and
gonna
max
do.
your score, and we're done,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So
Yeah.
lessons learned.
Yeah, no, it's so important. You have to do what they're going to do in your turn, and then one up it. Otherwise, you can be in very real trouble. Yeah, but that's a rough. And as you say, you scored super high and could very easily have been 4-1-5-0 in different circumstances. So I think it's a very good showing for the Death Guard. And then finally we have Leigh. How did you do, Leigh? Tell us a story.
I will weave you a story. So coming into the tournament, Chris basically told me that I was top of the UKTC for Chaos Space Marines, which I didn't really know, which was quite amusing. So then I felt all this pressure, and I decided to play an army that I'd not played before, which was Bile, and I've only had a couple of practice matches, so I was a bit rusty.
Yeah.
So going into it, I was anxious about, and so I got to the table. We were playing Death Watch for my first game, so I thought, okay, Space Marines, I can beat Space Marines with Bile. And I was playing against the lovely chap Joe Waddock, and we were playing Abandoned Sanctuaries, and helpfully he can't use his infiltration, so he can't get into the middle. Also, helpfully, all the objectives are down the middle, so everything is in charge range across the middle of the board, turn one. I think I pulled turn one on that game, so I pushed down one flank, took the brunt of his Death Watch shooting, where he drops the people in next to the chaplain, plays all the CP to auto wound on hits. He killed a few Warp Talons and a few Possessed, and then had a Baron thrown in his face. Not literally. I didn't pick it up and launch it at him.
I think you should have a second one that you do actually.
Yeah.
Catch.
Eat it and throw it down. But Abaddon charged into a massive kill team and destroyed them all, and then proceeded to basically run around the board in a U and get to the guy's back objective, just killing anything that stood in his way.
He sounds so fun to use, Abaddon. I'm going to have to try him because he sounds ludicrous.
Oh, definitely. Oh, he's great. And then in the middle, he threw another one of his big kill teams, and he didn't have a lot of units because he was playing the 10 block kill teams. And then my Demon Prince and Lord Discordant decided to jump on them and again eviscerate them all.
Give them
big warm hugs. And from what was being kind of an anxious game to start off with, because I again didn't really know what I was going to get, it turned into a bit of a good win for me. So that was an 81-46 in the first round. Very convincing. All the characters did exactly what they were meant to do, which was just wreck face. And the fight on death is just moderately amusing.
It's so funny. It's just
for everyone that isn't.
I find it funny. I quite enjoy playing into it. It's just batshit. Like, it's completely batshit.
It's amazing. And that took me to my second game, where I played the lovely Robert Schmidt of Berlin.
Robert Schmidt of Berlin.
Oh,
yeah.
Is that his full name?
Berlin. Robert Schmidt of Berlin. Yes.
Nice.
That's it. And he was such a great guy. Really good fun to play against. And this was a really, really tight game.
What was he?
I still count myself as being moderately inexperienced. It's my first ever LGT on probably what would count as my first ever full season.
Yes.
So playing into Tau, who are playing Callione, I've only ever played Tau once before. So I was a bit, I don't really know what I'm doing here. So I stuck to my game plan. I stuck to the Bile game plan, which was completely the wrong thing to do. Because he played it really well. He flew over his Sunshell bombers and bombed the bejeebers out of me in the first turn. Because I don't have really a huge amount of shooting, it's very hard to get rid of them. So I got rid of one first turn. And then he proceeded to sit back, only jumping forward with his super mobile process suits, shooting stuff down all the lovely shooting lanes that the UKTC scenery offers.
It's generous,
and bouncing away, leaving me these tantalizing 10-inch charges, which with my dice rolling would never happen. So I kind of tried to position, I tried to stage in the middle of the board, trying to get to him, which was again the wrong thing to do, because the Callione and the scoring secondaries that he picked are all going to kick off in the second half of the game. So I basically fed him parts of my army until I didn't have enough to respond in the latter turns. Even with that, it was close. It was a 60 to 56 loss.
Okay.
So it was respectable and low scoring, but I completely had one. My tactics were well off. Playing an army I'm not experienced with no shooting, versus probably my nemesis of a faction, which is going to be someone like Tau.
I hate Tau. They're my nemesis as well. I always find them hard work.
So that took me through after losing that one. However fun it was to play against Robert, you come away feeling like, oh, bollocks, I've just lost my second game. And I played against Jack Holiday. And Jack Holiday was running Imperial Guard. So I was like, yes,
I saw a bit of this. I came over and saw the end of this. This was good.
So someone's day.
It was one of those cases where you're like, I've got to win this game. I'm playing against Guard. As long as I get quickly across the board at him, there's really nothing this guy can do. So I took one of the psychic secondaries for a change. So I took psychic interrogation. Because I'd done my homework, I'd done my pre-measuring in practice games. I knew if I put my Warp Talons right front and center in my deployment, just behind in the kind of corners of the L's, I could definitely get a first turn charge off into his L's on the other side of the board if he left me the opportunity, which he did. And I got first turn. So I yeeted the Warp Talons across the board.
Yeah.
They multi-charged anything and everything that they could touch. And then after killing loads of Guard, well, not conscripts, just Guardsmen, they then piled and consolidated into the tanks behind them. Which kind of left him with massive problems. And eventually it was left to the point where Abaddon was eating basilisks at the back of the board.
That's when I came over, I think.
Yeah. My Demon Prince was playing a rather amusing game of I can't kill his last character, but I'm going to follow him 1 inch away all around the board while he tries to run away from me. Just to scrape those extra points.
Oh, so
but it was literally, it was charge everything forwards and just ruin Jack's day. So that was good fun. I enjoyed that game. Jack probably not so much.
No, it looked rough. It looked rough for Jack.
So left on a high after day one, feeling pretty tired. We went out for a lovely meal in the evening.
Yes, and
my day got even better. The team bought me a dinner.
You?
Yeah, it's one thing you want to do when you've never met anyone before is forget to pay for the meal and leg it. Nice.
That was really fun. I'm really chuffed that happened. And I also, my favourite bit was the next morning where you paid everyone back in individual coins as well. That was great.
That was it.
That was really.
I missed out on my pound coins, so I'll have to get them off you.
Oh no, they're still here, mate. They're still waiting for you. And then the next day, I spent all night prepping, looking at the list I was going to destroy. It was orcs, perfect prey for Bile. I'd got a tactical master plan, and of course, that's when no one turns up to your table.
Yeah, classic.
And so me and Kieran from the team as well, we rock up to the desk, asking Zach what our next opponent will be, and he went, first two guys, you're going to play against each other. So again, Kieran probably wasn't too happy with his full Khorne demon army.
And were you both 2-1?
Yeah,
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So we went back to the table. Kieran pretty much
and then pack them up again.
Yeah, basically. I had screens. He didn't have screens. I bubble wrapped my characters and then just chewed through his army unit by unit. As when he charged me, they died. When I charged him, they died. And probably not the most pleasant experience for Kieran, and he probably wishes he just took a couple of steps back from me in the line. But I was happy because I didn't face Tau or Imperial Knights. So good for me, not so good for Kieran.
Yeah, that's rough. But Kieran taking one for the team. Well done, Kieran.
He
Good lad.
did. He did.
Literally.
Like an absolute trooper.
Yeah. That's such a horrific matchup. Needed more skull cannons or something.
That was it.
I don't know what Khorne can do.
But my highlight from that one was I did misplay when I pushed a screen of cheap Legionnaires forwards. Just some chainsword boys, and his skull taker realised that they were within heroic intervention range, and I'd misplaced them.
Yeah.
So he jumped forwards and ate them, but on death, those 4 Legionnaires absolutely destroyed his skull taker, and I'm like, that is perfection. That's exactly what Bile does.
Extremely funny.
So that was the end of that game. So 97-56. We just saw again how like Bile just love going into combat armies.
They really do. They are the kings of melee right now, without a doubt.
And I wish I'd faced more of them, to be honest. So that takes me to round 5, where I played Chris. What's Chris's name again? Chris. I've jumped to game 10. That's not going to help me. So Chris Anderson of Vanguard Tactics, nickname the Rhino, and again Tau. I found Tau again, so I was like, "Oh bugger, I've got Tau again." However, Robert Schmidt had taught me many a lesson, so I was prepared. Robert Schmidt of Berlin had given me a good hand.
How did you approach
Viscount of Berlin?
Take us through it. What's the key? How did you solve this compared to the last time?
So. I realised that I had to hide. I couldn't go and engage him. I had to hide for the first half of the game because he's scoring the majority of his points in the second half. Okay. When Callione comes in, he's going to push. He's going to try and take those objectives to score his secondaries.
That's where his points come from. Yeah, so he's got
That's
to
it.
come out. Okay.
So I've got to hide, which feels so wrong. I want to be running at them.
It's horrible.
But I also chose Warp Ritual, which I scored the maximum on. I was surprised that he didn't come for the Demon Prince, who was surrounded by Warp Talons in the middle of the board. But he didn't try and get angles to shoot them. He just kind of let me score that 15. However, actually, I missed a really key point here. I think I might have won the game before deployment.
Okay.
Because this is the mission where you move the objectives. He went first, and he pulled his objective back into his scenery piece in his back corner in his deployment, allowing me to move his side of the board's objective out towards me into complete space and closer to all my objectives and my deployment zone.
Yeah.
And that was the one I chose as his priority target.
Yeah, okay.
So that allowed me to be in range with my Warp Talons and Abaddon to keep on removing him from that objective. And then later in the game, I sat Abaddon on it with his heroic intervention. So I had 2 turns of him not being able to actually interact with his own priority objective.
Yeah, I had exactly that exchange with the NIDS player on Monday, where the exact same thing happened. Moved his back one defensively. I was like, "Well, you're going to have to come and play on all the rest. Then you can't go anywhere else."
That's it.
Yeah,
and I thought I've done a great job here. He's still scoring lots of points though, so it's going to come really down to that last turn.
Yeah.
And I'd formulated a decent plan. However, my dice tried to absolutely screw me over in that last turn. So Abaddon goes out. He's still on that objective. He's got 6 wounds left. He shouldn't be able to die on that last turn. So, but however, through the shooting phase takes 3, which is pretty easy for the Tau. And then he charges in a Riptide and his commander, who should not kill Abaddon. There's no way they should really do it. I've got CP to do a reroll.
Yeah.
I'm saving on 2s.
Yeah.
I roll a 1 into a 1. Abaddon dies on that last turn. Then in the center, he's got a Riptide standing on the center objective. I've got to get rid of it. The Demon Prince charges in. The Accursed Cultists charge in to get on some OBSEC on there as well. I roll really well with the Demon Prince and his crazy Nurgle sword. He explodes and I get 11 hits through, which is 11 wounds, 3 damage each, -3. He saves pretty much all of them. the accursed cultists bounce off him and don't do any wounds either, and his Riptide remains on that central objective and then shoots and kills every accursed cultist again, which is actually quite hard to do.
That's really hard to. They're chewing. They don't go away easy. Yeah.
So that went wrong. But luckily, my Warp Talons made it into his commander that were on that objective and killed his commander, which gave me 3 points for specimens instead of 2.
Spider. Yep.
And that turned out to be extremely important. And after fudging everything, I won by 1 point. 78 to 77.
That is outrageous.
Very
so
nice.
I tried to press the self-destruct button, but luckily my game plan saved me.
Abaddon punted over by a Riptide is quite funny. I quite enjoy that.
Was that the first time Abaddon died all weekend as well?
It was.
Yeah.
Wow.
To a Riptide.
Tau in melee.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's super
we found
good.
the secret. Don't nerf him.
Yeah,
If he can
he's
buy the
fine.
Tau.
Yeah. He's been a hammer and a meta of nails. They just need Riptides, and then everything.
That's it.
Fine.
So that left me
must have been quite good for overall placing with a 4-1.
Yes. So 4-1. Admittedly, because I had quite a few low scoring games in the 4-1 bracket, I was pretty near the bottom, I think. So overall, I believe that I placed. Where did I place? I think I placed 90th.
Yeah.
Nice. With my 4-1. No, I didn't. No, I did. Where did I finish? I don't even know. I'm pretty sure I finished 90th.
I think you were thereabouts. Yeah, it was. It was definitely top 100, sort of 90, 80 kind of territory.
Which I was
very good at an event that size.
Yeah, and the fact that I run into 2 lots of Tau, which were a kind of not good fun with Bile, because
they're enjoying a revival precisely because they have a good game into Chaos at the moment. They're one of the others that really do have make life very hard for you. So yeah, that's a tough matchup, and the fact that you learned and got through it the second time, I think, is really cool.
That was very good.
Yeah,
they probably feel similarly into Necrons as well.
Yes, I'd imagine so. But that was good, really, really good LGT, first ever experience. Absolutely loved it.
It's really
loved the games. All gentlemen, especially Robert Smith of Berlin, who actually came to find me at the very end of the tournament to again thank me because he'd learned so much in the Bile game.
Yeah,
he was able to get 4-1 because his last game was against
very
Bile.
Good.
So
yeah,
we're now pen pals.
That's lovely. That's lovely. Oh, you're going to go and play in the Berlin Grand Tournament. No, I had one LGT running like that because I actually shouted him out on when we talked about LGT. I shouted out Matt, the lad I played with, all Slanesh Demons, who was at like his first big event last time, and he came and found me at the event because he had listened to this show. So Matt, thank you for listening to this show, you babe, and it was really lovely to see you again. And he'd switched. He was meta hunting on something. I can't remember what you were on, Matt. It was Necrons or something, wasn't it? I don't know, but I hope you had a good time at the LGT anyway. So that was us. I felt like for the team it was a wonderful weekend. Like we had a really good time. It was nice to have everyone out. We had so many of us there, and I felt like although Leigh was the only 4-1, we gave a good account of ourselves, and it was very fine margins, I think, between a few players and a few results. So I think we were very chuffed with that. I'm going to sort of, for our wrap-up section, get each of you to think about what you yourself have learned and then what you feel you've developed in this UKT season just gone and what you're hoping to do in the next one coming. So if we start with you, Leigh, and work back round, how do you feel this first season has been? What do you feel you've learned? And what are you looking to take forwards?
Well, I only went and bloody won it, didn't I? Not the whole thing.
You did.
The Chaos Space Marines.
You won the Chaos Space Marines. Top Chaos Space Marines.
Yeah.
Which is epic.
Yeah, it feels really weird because I think it's basically I am quite lucky because it was off the back of the fact that no one really played them during 8th.
But you did is the thing. You turned up.
That is the thing.
You turned up, and you also did better than anyone else that was turning up because some people did still play Chaos Space Marines. They were just getting annihilated.
But it was a season of learning things because like I say, I've played so many armies that I've never played before. And each of those big tournaments was a massive learning curve. like when you in the last one, so one of the results that really helped me was Birmingham, where I went 4-1 as well, and that was the first time I'd ever played sisters,
Yeah.
and managed to get the win against versus sisters, and
Yeah.
you learn so much in those games, like the Tau
Yeah.
in LGT, that from that experience, the next time I know that I can go in and what I have to do against things. So it's going to be a massive learning curve, and I think that'll hold me in stead for next season, because the more of these different armies that I get to play against, the better I become.
Definitely.
And if we're looking for kind of resolutions,
absolutely,
this new season,
pledges.
I'm hunting for a 5-0. That's my goal for the season.
That's a very nice goal to have.
Because I've had 1 4-1 with the old Emperor's Children code, the old codex. I've got my 4-1 with the new codex, admittedly with Bile, but I think Emperor's Children are stronger anyway, so that's the way to go with those.
I think you've got more versatility there.
So I'm back on the Emperor's Children with those 2 back-to-back 4-1s in majors. The next stop is the Dream 5-0. That's what we're aiming for.
And I think it's a good time to hunt for that, because when you're in form yourself and a book is in a good place, is the time to push and just see what you can do, right? And I think that's certainly one of the things I learned, is that both your form and the strength of your armies fluctuates. So when those two things line up, you've got to go for it and just put yourself out there and keep plugging away and really push, right? Make the most of it. So I strongly encourage it. Go get them. I think it's a good
I do wish I could play more, though. That's the only thing I think. Say with I'm sure lots of people in the hobby experience the fact that you've got far too many children and not enough weekend time. And you can't get rid of them, and they can't come with you. So you just got to go to as many tournaments as you can. So that's my other struggle, is trying to pretend that I don't have children and get away for as many weekends as possible without my wife divorcing me.
I was going to say, so you set yourself the goal of 5-0. What are you going to do to try and make that happen? What's making it different?
So I'm currently writing my Emperor's Children lists, and as we've seen at LGT, when we play on the UKTC terrain, the shooting channels for those Blast Masters are delicious. So I think with the focus on Emperor's Children, the tweaking of a list to play suitably into that terrain, I think you take away the issues you've got with Bile, because Bile can't interact with other shooting armies.
You have a plan B.
Whereas Emperor's Children,
really good plan B.
And the other thing with Bile is I didn't even play the 10 Terminator brick. I played MSU Bile, and I think that Terminator brick or something similar causes people so many more problems, especially the shooting armies. So with those two components and the use of the kind of fight last elements that Emperor's Children has, I think it's another step above Bile if played well.
I totally agree.
And
I think played well, combat armies outside of Bile can't deal with you, I don't think. Or certainly most of them. And then Emperor's Children actually have a plan B into shooting armies, and I think we saw that borne out at LGT and a couple of events since. So, and you're the kind of player who has the skill set to get the most out of both of those. So yeah, exciting. It'll be good, and hopefully they'll also get away with it in the data slate, because I imagine Bile's on their radar, but I don't know that Emperor's Children is. We'll have to see.
I heard that Baden's coming down by 50 points as well. So
he needs to be seen. You barely see him. You hardly see him. No, I think those are good resolutions, and I think a bit of ambition. I like to, obviously, we like to set goals that aren't based in and around outcomes, but I think, you've come on massively as a player this year, and it's a nice thing to be pushing for at this moment in time when things are when form and meta feel good. It's a good time to chase those things. Very nice. And how about you, Stuart?
So reflections on the season. So I've attended 12 tournaments with Death Guard. I'm pushing. I think LGT took me to my 100th 2,000 point GT pack rep. For want of a better word, I'd say competitive. Might as well just call it a competitive rep because I don't really get a chance to play anyone that's rubbish. I don't know if that's that, but that's probably for the best. I promised myself I'd take Death Guard till January.
Okay.
For the ITC season. And then what happens after that, I'm not sure really. I may just keep the itch too much. It depends if I can paint what else I've got planned in time to feel I can give it a good go and learn it. But yeah, I think it's just the grind. None of the things that I've done wrong in the games that I've played have anything to do with what army I was playing. So you can always learn something regardless of what you choose to take. So I might give myself a bit of a break from feeling like I'm grinding the Death Guard out, and maybe mix it up a bit, try some other things out to try and improve as a player. But from an UKTC perspective, I achieved two of the things that I set out to do. I ended up in the top 5 in Death Guard, which was great. I ended up in the top 100 in the UK, which was great. And LGT eluded me this time around, but still good learning to be had.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't. I'm not. I was. I wanted to place higher than I did the year before. That was my personal goal to myself. Because I felt I'd let myself down in the last one, where I'd been on table 20 at 4-0, giving myself a chance and messed it up. So it was kind of more a case of going. But there's other super majors where I can just do equally well, and we've got Leicester, we've got Nottingham coming up. So we'll see how it goes.
It's exciting, as I say, and I think obviously you are as dangerous a player as there is piloting Death Guard. But I've got a hunch that once we try you on something else, we might see even scarier new dimensions to your play. So I am excited to seeing you on some different armies, particularly the kinds of things I know are being sort of plotted and schemed in the background. I think it'd be really interesting and a bit terrifying to see your brain applied to those kinds of tools. So more on that as it develops.
Things with more than movement 5.
Things that are quick and sneaky and janky and turn up in places you don't want them to turn up. Yeah, I can see you being a real pain in the ass with those kinds of tools. And how about yourself, Chris?
Yeah, so obviously the front half of the season, I got lucky with the timing of my AdMech army.
You and I both did. We had a great first half of season.
Had a great time, won a tournament.
I was actually better at Warhammer then somehow. I don't really know.
Yeah, I don't quite know why I'm doing worse now.
When were Death Guard good? Because I missed that bit.
You never got that, man.
I
think
we weren't allowed out while we were in lockdown.
They were good on Tabletop Simulator, right? That's when they were good.
And then obviously I could fall back to my Custodes because they obviously had a hot streak as well. I've been really enjoying the Harlequins. They're probably the army I enjoyed the most. My results haven't been great recently, but every single time I lose, I can pinpoint why. Very rarely is it that I've lost because I've just lost against the better army. Most of the time, I can pinpoint the moment where I lost the game. So I think that's, in terms of the long run, that's quite good that I can identify that. So for me, I'm planning on sticking with the Eldar. Be it Harlequins or maybe dabbling in Yunari. I'll definitely give Yunari a go. You
should try it. Definitely try it.
If I can ever build this damn Howling Banshee, it's not going well.
They're actually
literally the first cut I made was I chopped a foot off a stone, which I wasn't supposed to do.
That's why you don't podcast and clip, boys.
No, can't
multitask. Dangerous game.
But no, we'll see what the data balance slate does. There are certain aspects I really like of the Harlequins, and if they go or you can't take them, then we'll have to see if I still want to play them. But I imagine I will. And I feel like I've hit a ceiling of a certain level with the Harlequins. If I could stop making those certain mistakes, I'll be at the top of that level. But it's not high enough level to be hitting the 4-1-5-0s consistently. I think if I stop making those mistakes, I could get closer to it. But I feel like I most of the time I go into a game, I have a game plan, I know where things are going, I can kind of play the game plan every time. but I feel like it's not the perfect game plan, and I feel like I need to adapt how I play. So I
Yeah.
might have a little experiment of playing a lot more aggressively. I usually play
Yeah.
around quite defensively,
You do want
throw
to play
things, and
aggressively
try
with
and have
Harlequins.
stuff at the end. So I
Yep.
might try so I might just go to a tournament, like, right, I'm just going to be super aggressive, not stupid, but super aggressive, and see if that actually works.
Yeah.
Just experiment with that as a play style and see if I can learn from that.
Yeah.
I'm generally quite good at trying to take learning opportunities from each tournament. It sucks at the time, but afterwards I can reflect and go, well, actually, I learned a lot from this tournament. I can apply this next time. And, that's obviously the LGT was the hope that you would apply it all. But, at the end of the day, I still learned a lot. The amount of times this Troop Master has lost me a game.
I was thinking that earlier on as you started telling another Troop Master loses me the game story. I've been here so many times where the Troop Master fucks it all up for Chris.
Really
again.
ruins everything.
If he's not in the list, he can't lose you the game.
He doesn't kill anything when he's supposed to. I think I'm just going to go I've decided 3 Shadow Seers.
Yeah, do it. Why not? Yeah, get him out. Get him out.
He's gone. He's gone. You've heard it here first, podcasters. See you at Coventry with 3 Shadow Seers.
Yeah,
Boom.
Lovely.
That's my target.
No, very cool.
No Troop.
Just another 5 troop.
Yeah, that's it. Just more bodies.
Yeah, well, I've already got 9.
There's still more stuff to be done with Harlequins, and I feel like Light is probably the most likely to get hit. And even if that does happen,
Jack just won Twilight.
There's still stuff you can do with Twilight and Dark on different settings, different boards. But Yannari you'll have fun with because it just gives you a whole suite of new toys to play with, right? And it's very enjoyable. There's a lot of ways to lose the game playing as Yannari, so I look forward to you learning all of that.
I'm excited.
It really you have to get it all right. But it's super, super fun. Very nice. And yeah, I had a really good year. I think I swung in and out of taking it very seriously and then pissing about depending on how sort of good stuff I was playing was. Drukhari spiked a couple of times and I had a really nice time with that. I had that one weekend on Harlequins that was sort of like, what the hell is this? and then got off that. But I've really enjoyed it. I've definitely got a good sense of how the game works and what you need in a competitive event and what the sort of matchups are. And as the meta changes, it's funny, isn't it? Because the meta swings in and out, and often you need a few goes round of a particular moment in the meta to actually really feel like you're comfortable with it. I guess I feel fairly comfortable with where the game's at the moment, but I guess it will all change again with Guard and World Eaters and the like before too long. And for next year, I haven't decided what I want to run, but I think I want to sort of mix and match between having some fun on stuff I know isn't as good, and also really, really swinging for a few events with some really, really filthy stuff as well. But I just need to decide what concoctions that will be. So I'm looking forward to working that out. But we've got a good team now, so it's all going to be very competitive, right? We're all going to be trying.
Yeah, it's going to be competitive. We've got team events as well to pick
each other. We've got team
for.
events to write really filthy lists for as well. So I think I quite like the idea of really just putting the foot on the gas with that and just seeing what we can all do. And I think that'll be really fun. And actually, it'll be very good to play within the team more often than we do.
Yeah, more training weekends.
Yeah, that's it. Make sure we get game days where we're really, really testing ourselves and throwing different things at each other. And I think we'll come on leaps and bounds for that. So it'll definitely be a case of getting stuck in and making the most of 9th edition whilst we still have it as well, as we ride it down to whatever comes next. Brilliant. All right. Well, I think that's a sensible length of a podcast episode, so we'll probably call it there for the time being. But thank you very much, chats, for joining me, and thanks for a wonderful LGT weekend. Thanks, Leigh, for finally paying us all back for dinner.
Apart from Stuart.
And we have been the Plus, and we are only getting bigger and stronger and better. So we will see you all around soon. Thanks very much for listening. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.